Welcome to Module 4 of Painless Selling. In Module 4, we're going to cover quite a few things, and it's going to be the actual meat of the sales call, the things you actually do when you're in front of the customer. So this is going to be one of our most critical modules. I think you're going to find out the reason in this module why we call it painless selling. Our process makes it so easy to interact very comfortably with a customer and put them at ease. Think about the selling process as two levels of tension. The prospect's tension level, which is really high when you first walk in because right away they're assuming, hey, this guy's going to sell me something. And think about the salesperson's tension level, which is also really high, and they detect that. And the more uncomfortable they feel you are, the less likely they are to buy. So the whole power of our process, painless selling, is we want to lower tension levels real quickly. So when we start asking questions, we let them know that we're not there to sell anything. Their tension goes down. And as a result, our tension goes down. So that's the whole purpose. The less we talk, the more thought-provoking questions we ask, the better the sales process goes. So what are we going to go over in this module? Well, first, in Module 4, we're going to describe and explain how to determine customer needs. We're going to talk about a very unique set of questioning skills. Then we'll describe and explain the question sequence strategy that we use. New information questions, problem creation questions, projection questions, and payoff questions. These are usually terms you won't find in a sales course, and they're very unique to our sales training. So we know that this works from being on the streets. We still go out and make those sales calls with the sales consultants and the dealerships. So we're very aware of what works and what doesn't work. And trust me, we've tested this again and again and again with great success. So buy into what we tell you, and you're going to be really, really successful. Third, we're going to explain and assist the dealerships in developing a follow-up strategy to build long-term relationships with customers. That's essential. We can sell, but if we don't have a long-term strategy, we can lose that customer to the next dealership that comes along. We certainly don't want that to happen. Let's talk about determining customer needs. First, customers are going to have stated needs. That's what they tell us. We're looking for. We want. When they express those right away and come right out and they're very forward, they give us their stated needs. Those are needs that are usually urgent in nature, i.e. a truck broke down and they've got to replace it now. So that's a stated need. They also have what we term undiscovered needs. You don't know what you don't know, as the old saying goes. We want to ask thought-provoking questions where they begin to think, I do need that. I never thought about it, didn't even know it existed, but thanks for bringing it up. And that's called an undiscovered need. Finally, we have created needs. Those are ones that as we build confidence, as we build trust with the customer, that we can take them to the next level. These would be things that normally they wouldn't buy off on, but because they trust us and because they're things that can be beneficial to them, we would never sell anything that doesn't benefit the customer. Then we can also over time create needs or have them buy more products from us that can be beneficial to their business. Question strategies. We like to think of questions as in a sequence, kind of like a good detective, a Columbo or a Sherlock Holmes. The first sequence question that we usually come to are new information questions. And there are several categories of these. One is called confirmation questions. Then we have our basic new information questions. And we have highest value questions. We'll talk about all of those during this module. Second are problem creation questions. Once we uncover a need, if we don't turn it into a problem, it's far less likely that someone's going to buy. So in reality, what do people buy? They buy solutions to problems. And that's what we're going to be providing. And our problem creation questions put that burden on the prospect to answer it and therefore buy in to the solution. Projection questions. Think of a movie projector. It starts out very small and then has a huge picture. Very often, if we're going to move a client or a prospect to take action, we have to magnify the consequences of not taking action. That's why we call it projection. We want to magnify consequences to create a greater sense of urgency. Payoff questions. These are questions that turn a negative, the problems that we've helped create, into a positive, how they can benefit the customer and how better off they're going to be once they're willing to take action. Again, we're moving them toward action. Let's talk about this question sequence strategy. We're going to use information questions to get background information, the what, when, why, where, and how. The more we know, the more they tell us, the greater chances we have of uncovering needs and wants. And there's a big difference between needs and wants. Needs are necessities. Wants are dreams. And those created needs that we talked about just a few slides ago, those are wants. There are certain things they want to do with their company. They want to expand rapidly. How can we help them? Maybe we network them with other clients and help them grow their business. The next sequence is taking all that information that we uncovered, those needs that we uncovered, the wants we uncovered, and use a problem creation question to reveal what we call implied needs. That means we're asking a question, they're going to answer it, and in the affirmative say, yes, this is a problem. As soon as they do that, then the sales process begins to move forward very rapidly. We're going to ask projection questions to build on the scope of the implied needs. In other words, we're going to create a sense of urgency by enlarging the problem over time and over numbers, and we'll show you that process. Finally, we're going to ask payoff questions. So buyer focuses on solutions and benefits and states the explicit needs and how they're going to be solved. So we want them to think, wow, if I take action, here are the benefits I'm going to receive. So that's the question sequence. Information questions to uncover information. Problem creation to get them to expressly say there is a problem. Projection questions to magnify that problem. And payoff questions to turn it into a positive. And that'll lead us right into what we call summary and commitment. New information questions. What do? Well, they uncover information, but it also verifies information we are aware of, but want to make sure by asking. If we've done our homework, we know the answers to a lot of our questions. We have a saying in Painless Prospecting, never ask a question unless you already know the potential answer. Here's an example. Here's a very bad question, and it's not really a new information question. How do you like the dealership you're working with now? What's the bad that can happen? They can say they love it. So why would we ask that question? Here's a better question. When you're working with a dealership, what are some of the things that are most important to you? Now they tell us how to sell. So again, confirmation questions uncover needs and wants. Generally, we like to write those questions out in advance. One of the things, this is a coaching hint, a coaching tip, we ask new sales consultants to do is to have a notebook that has a writing pad on both sides. On one side, we're going to take notes. On the other side, the questions that we want to ask, those very valuable questions, are already written, so there's no chance of mistake. And we won't get into the frame of mind of starting to show up and throw up, i.e. talking too much and not gaining new information and uncovering needs and uncovering wants. As I mentioned, there are different types of new information questions. One of them is what we call an advantage question. That's where we already know that we have an advantage with our vehicle, so we focus our questions around that. For instance, let's say we know we have a gas mileage advantage. Then our questions are going to be built around gas mileage. And we're not going to tell them, hey, guess what, our vehicle is better than yours. That would be offending the prospect or client. But we are going to say, hey, are you aware of the mileage difference in what you're driving now and what's in the marketplace? That would be termed an advantage question. If they say yes, all we simply have to say is, well, then you're probably aware that you're losing about 3 miles per gallon right now. If they say, no, I'm not aware, we're going to say the same thing. That's an advantage question. Make sure you know the competition's vehicle. Make sure you know their service hours. Make sure you know their loaner policy. Build advantages. Highest value questions help to isolate the things that are most important to the customer. Generally, they'll contain a word like most or best or highest. An example would be, you mentioned customer service was very important to you. What's the single most important thing about customer service that you value the most? That's the highest value question. It gives me their most important need. And that most important need can trump all the minor needs. But if we don't know it, we can't focus on it. It could be vendor related, i.e. related to their current dealership. That's that question when I say, hey, of the things that a dealership provides for you, what are the one or two most important things? That would be a vendor related question. Hey, of the 4 needs that you've said you've got, if you had to rank those first, second, third, fourth, which would be on top? Okay, that's a needs-based highest value question. Hey, 5 problems that you expressed that you had. If you had to put those in priority order, what would they be? That's a problem-based highest value question. And finally, improvement. Hey, if one thing could happen, if one improvement could take place that would really propel your company, what would it be? So highest value questions can come in a lot of different forms. Advantage questions, again, give you are only expressed when you've got advantage either in service or sales or process. Highest value questions isolate the things that are most important once they've expressed that there are several needs, wants, or problems. Let's go specifically and talk about why problem creation questions. And this is where most salespeople really miss the boat. Someone expresses needs and the salesperson recognizes it. What do? They start selling. Well, I've got the solution to your problem. And then they throw up all over the customer. A problem creation question prevents that from happening, and it gets the customer or prospects buy-in, and then we can proceed with the sales process. Remember, I'm a sales guy. If I say it, it's not always true to the customer. If the customer expresses that they have a problem, it's always true. That's the purpose of problem creation questions. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Problem creation questions are very simple. Once you've uncovered a need, it has to be converted to a problem. You see, people buy solutions to problems. It's not enough to know the gas mileage. It's to convert it to a problem. Gosh, when you're not getting the gas mileage you should, how does that affect your business? Or how does that affect your bottom line? There's only one answer. Gee, I guess I'm losing money. Notice with that problem creation question, I use the word affect. We always use one of the words effect or impact when we're talking about problem creation questions. That helps. We call it a memory tag. It really helps you. So you've isolated those needs, you've got to turn them into problems. Suppose they said, well, gosh, we're going to be expanding our business and we're going to start needing medium duty trucks. So if you can't get delivery on those trucks, how is that going to affect the bottom line of your business? Gosh, it's going to kill us. When they express it, it becomes true, and it becomes very, very powerful. So the purpose is to get the prospect to express the problem. That's what we're after. At that point, that problem becomes very real to the prospect or to the customer. So again, problem creation questions are essential, very simple. Remember those trigger words, those memory words, effect and impact. You'll never go wrong. Never start talking after you've uncovered a need. Ask a problem creation question. And usually it'll relate to the bottom line. Projection questions. We introduced that a few slides back. And have you ever had this situation? This is kind of interesting. I've had it happen to me. I think every good salesperson has had it happen. The prospect gets real excited. They show all kinds of buying signs. They're ready to roll. They want to meet with you one more time. You leave, you're excited, you go back and tell your boss, hey, I think we got this one, and then they won't return your calls. What happened? Well, they lost a sense of urgency. It could be that they still intend to do something, but other problems have taken or superseded what you want them to do. We didn't create enough sense of urgency in order to make it happen. And that's the purpose of projection questions, is to magnify problems to create a sense of urgency. And we've got a very simple formula to do this. Here's our projection question strategy. Start with one vehicle and the smallest time frame. Let's go back to that gas mileage advantage of 2 to 3 miles per gallon. I might ask the prospect, how many miles do you typically drive a vehicle in 1 month? They might tell me 2,000, 3,000 miles is not unusual. Then if we figure on that one vehicle, what they could be saving in dollars, it's going to come up to about $200 for a single vehicle. So when I ask, how much do you drive it? We do a calculation. I said, well, gosh, with one vehicle, you could be saving $200 a month. Now, how many vehicles are in your fleet? Gosh, Ken, we have 10. So 10 times 200, they're going to say $2,000. So $2,000 a month is what you're spending extra. So what does that come out to over a year? Well, gosh, Ken, that's $24,000. Now, how long do you generally keep those trucks in service? Gosh, for us, 5 years. So 24,000 times 5, gee, $120,000. They never look at it that way. And by me gradually expanding out, I start creating a sense of urgency. Now they're going, wow, I never thought about losing $2,000 a month, much less $24,000 a year, and $120,000 over the life of my vehicles. Now there's a sense of urgency. So that's the purpose of the projection questions. Now, understand something. They're in a negative state right now because they're going, wow, I'm losing some money. This guy's right. Well, we want to take that negative state, because people generally don't buy in a negative state. We want to turn it into a positive state. How do we do that? Payoff questions. Think of a payoff question as very simply, what are you going to do with that extra money? I mean, how will that impact your business? How will that help you grow your business? So we're going to use that same impact or effect, but use it in a positive way, not to create a problem, but to show a payoff. You know, how's that going to impact your business? How is that going to help your business if you're going to be saving $2,000 a month? We hope they say, gosh, I could buy another van or truck. So payoff questions help them do that. Payoff questions convert a negative problem into a positive. And it's very, very simple. That money savings or the safety savings that we uncover. It could be convenience. It could be efficiency. Maybe we help those trucks make one extra stop by making it easy access into a particular van for a florist with a rollout tray. And they know they're going to be able to make 2 extra stops. Well, how much is that worth? Might be worth $200 a day. So we're going to help them improve their business. So we're going to take that negative problem, we're going to solve it, and turn it into a positive. Payoff questions always show the tangible benefits of taking action. After we've depressed them and showed them they're going to lose $120,000 over 5 years, now we're going to show them the positives of what they're going to be able to do to their business if they take action now. So again, we're still trying to create that sense of urgency. We're moving the prospect into a buying mode. And that's what payoff questions do. They move the prospect into the buying mode that we want. And that buying mode is growth mode. We're moving them into that aspect of, wow, with this extra money, I could grow my business. I could do extra things. I could hire more employees. I could do more marketing. So lots of things they can do with that money. And we're putting them into that growth mode or a positive buying mode. The payoff questions, once they get excited, lead them directly into the commitment phase of the sales process. So we're going to talk a little bit about that commitment, because to us there are really 2 parts of the commitment. Used to call it closing, and we'll still use that term some, but we really want to get them committed to taking action. We're not closing them on anything. We're gaining their commitment, and that's what we're after. So what is the commitment phase? Well, again, you probably call it closing. We call it commitment, but it is a close. It is a guarantee. It is a verbal, or in some cases a written contract, to take action. That's what commitment's all about. It's taking action. You know, the old joke about the chicken and the pig walking down the street, and they decide to have breakfast. And the chicken says, well, I can contribute an egg. And the pig says, that's easy for you to say. I have to make a commitment. It's called bacon. Well, the customer has to make a commitment. What are the 2 phases we want to talk about? First, we want to talk about the summary review. And again, the average salesperson misses this particular aspect. The summary review basically is allowing them to go back through everything they've liked or agreed upon, and we're getting a second verification to make it more real. We don't want them to be able to back out. So what does the summary review include? First, we choose each of the topics that the prospect or customer expressed as a problem. Gas mileage, as the example we've been using. And we're going to go through the solution to that gas mileage problem. We're going to review it, and then we're going to be able to say, is that correct? So in the case of gas mileage, gee, I think we showed where we would be able to save you 3 miles per gallon. And I know when we talked about how does that impact your business, I think we were able to figure out that that would save you about $2,000 a month. Is that correct? Review the potential solution. What's the only answer? Yes. So we're reinforcing the need to take action. We want to gain that verbal agreement. We've got to get that yes out of them. Clear the dinner table of any dirty dishes. What do I mean by that? You know, if you had a great dinner and the dishes just sit there, it kind of gets a foul odor. Well, clearing the table in the summary review is simply saying, by the way, Mr. Customer, is there anything we haven't covered that's important to you? That's stopping them from going back later and says, well, you know, there is one more thing and I need to think about it. Well, we want to clear that table right at the spot of the summary review. If we'll say, hey, is there anything else that's important to you that we need to discuss in this whole process? If they say yes, we simply start our sales process over. If they say no, we've just cleared the table. I can't tell you how important that is in the sales process. This moves us into the full commitment phase, and it does it with grace and dignity. We don't have to strong-arm anybody. We don't have to manipulate anybody. In the summary phase, they've already agreed. Most of all, it relaxes us as the seller. Too often, when it comes time to close or gain commitment, the salesperson gets real tense and uptight because they're afraid to ask the closing question. Well, in our process, we make it so easy that it's not a problem. So let's kind of walk through right now that whole closing commitment phase, and I think you're going to see how very easy it is in our process. There are a dozen different closes out there. One of my favorite motivational speakers was Zig Ziglar, and he had a book, 25 Ways to Close the Sale, and he had everything from the porcupine close, the reverse close, the Ben Franklin close, and they're all good. The doorknob close, that was an interesting one. That's where you the customer stonewalls you, or the prospect stonewalls you, and they won't agree, and then you're getting ready to leave and their tension level goes down. You grab the doorknob and you stop and you turn back around and you say, can I ask you one more question? They say, sure. Was it me? Well, no, it wasn't you. Was it something I said? No, it wasn't something you said. Well, then what was it? And they try to start the sales process over. That's called a manipulative close, and we don't believe in those. So we don't use the dozen different closes that are out there. In fact, in Painless Selling, we only use 2, and they're very simple ones, and you've probably used both of them sometime in your career. The first one is a simple assumptive close. They've just, and that's the importance now of that summary that we did, where they agreed. Now we can simply start the process. Well, look, here's our next step. I'm going to bring the vehicle by, let you take a look at it, kind of drive it, get used to it. I'll bring the paperwork with me, and we can go over everything. We can talk about our financing options. That's an assumptive close. If they don't stop me, I keep moving. And it's okay to use in our process because they've already pre-agreed to what we want them to do. If you're not comfortable with assumptive close or it's not fitting, we also have what we call the participation close. It's very, very simple. We simply ask a question. Here's an example of a participation close. You've done your summary, they've agreed to everything, and I simply say, Mr. Prospect, what's our next step? Now I've forced them to participate in the closing process. They might say, I don't know, you tell me. And that's great, then I will tell them. Or they might say, well, you know, I guess I'd really like to see the vehicle. Well, great, I'll go ahead and bring it by tomorrow. Would that fit your needs? Super. That's participation close. What's our next step? We might say, where do we go from here? That's participation close. So they're very, very simple. The assumptive and the participation should cover every situation that you encounter. The key to all of the closes, the key to this whole sales process is the follow-up that comes after they've committed. This is where the sale is lost, I would say 50% of the time, by not staying on top of it, not gaining additional commitment from the customer. A couple of things we like to do is really have a letter prepared that covers everything that we went over. And we will email that instead of just sending it, and we'll also put it in the mail. It becomes a psychological commitment where they look at it and say, wow, I did agree to all that. And it's a very powerful situation. Very important, you have to gain commitment. All sales have to end with a commitment. I don't care if it's not time to close on the actual vehicle yet. You might close on gaining another appointment. You might close on gaining the right to bring your service manager by. You might close on the right to bring a vehicle by. You need to close on something on every call. One of the best closes on a first call is to gain commitment for the second call, right on the spot. And we highly advise doing this. Very, very important. So again, it's all about gaining commitment, but doing it in such a low-key, honest, straightforward way that the customer actually might enjoy the process with what they're used to from salespeople. Real questions. People ask me, does features, advantage, benefit selling work in the complex sale? Well, the answer is yes. We don't sit and talk about features, benefits like they do in a lot of seminars because our questioning process automatically does that for us. We don't have to say, hey, here's a feature of our vehicle and here's how it benefits you. We simply ask questions and we let the customer do all of that kind of selling. So does it work? Yes. Do we talk about it? Not a lot, because our questions cover feature, advantage, and benefit selling. Selling benefits is always important, no matter what we do. Our benefits, however, are built into our questions. Instead of us telling the customer, here's a feature and here's how it benefits you, we might ask a question. Hey, have you ever been driving and you look down to change the channel on the radio? You kind of swerve off the road. You look back up and, man, you have to correct yourself. Well, that's caused a lot of accidents. Have you ever had that situation? Well, yeah, I've veered off the road before. Well, guess what? How would it affect you if you didn't have to look down? How would it affect you if all you had to do was press buttons on the steering wheel? Oh, that'd be great. Well, that's our vehicle. Notice I didn't say, here's a feature and here's how you sell it. I asked questions. Our features benefit selling only has to do with questions. So you are selling benefits, but you're doing it with the questions we create in advance in most cases. One question we get a lot is, well, what about a sales presentation? Well, guess what? Your whole presentation should be an interactive presentation. If someone doesn't buy, we might have to go into a second presentation, but it's always interactive. What do I mean by interactive presentations? I'm getting the customer to participate in the process. That way they don't get bored. That way they don't tune us out. As long as they're talking, they have to be engaged. So our presentations, our sales presentations, are always interactive. We want to gather information to the very last minute. We want to use that confirmation check we talked about at both the beginning and also to verify any questions. Our presentation, if we have to give one, should mirror the sales process that we just described exactly. From new information questions to problem creation questions to projection questions, right to payoff questions, and summary and commitment. The presentations we give follow the same process. Always show follow-up to show that you'll do what you said you would do. Give them a next step in your presentation. And again, always be sure to uncover what customer considers value added before you ever go in the door. That's that brief conversation we have on the phone when we're gaining the appointments. We can also gain those value adds through our coach or through our influencer. Gather information. Never stop gathering information. Always confirm everything you agreed to. Make sure a presentation, if you have to give one, mirrors your sales process. Always show follow-up to show your commitment. And be sure to understand what they value in advance if you can through your coach or through your influencer. A couple of follow-up actions after that sales call that we always recommend. Immediately send a thank you card. Within 24 hours, call back on the phone. Even if you get their voicemail, leave a thank you message. Mr. Smith, thank you so much for meeting with me. I value your time. I appreciate all the information you gave me, and I'm excited about working with your company and partnershiping to help take you to the next level and to show you all the wonderful things we're going to be able to do for you. Make sure you debrief your visit with yourself. Did you achieve your sales call goal? There should be a goal going into the sales call, and you should check that goal going back out. If you didn't do it, what will you do the next time? This will set up your sales process. And then you can update your account analysis form that's right under this module, and keep updating that. If you can fill out that account analysis form, chances are you're probably going to make the sale. I'm that strong a believer in it. Thank you card, handwritten, follow-up phone call in 24 hours just to say thank you. Check yourself, debrief yourself, make sure that you set your goal, and if you didn't, what are you going to do next time? And then let's update that account analysis form. How many sales calls does it take to gain the sale? This is very important, and these are statistics again from the Huthwaite Corporation on business-to-business sales. And this is why we don't try to push for the sale on the very first call, because on your first call, you've got a 1% chance of making the sale. Second call, only 2%. Third, 4%. Fourth visit, it shoots up to 12%. And by the fifth call and after, 81% of all sales are made. So let's not push the sales process. Let's use the painless selling system to uncover needs and to support the customer. And think about those numbers, ingrain them in your head. In fact, look at it this way. Every sales call I make, I'm putting money in the bank. If making a sale is going to net me $1,000, then I can divide by 5, and each of those sales calls is worth $200. So as soon as I make that first sales call, that's $200 in the bank that's waiting for me. I just can't withdraw it yet. It has to reach its maturity. The second call, that's $400 in the bank. Third call, $600, then $800, and then $1,000. So be patient and follow the painless selling system. Let's talk about second calls real quick. Always set up a scenario to get back for the second appointment. This becomes the purpose of your next visit. If on the first visit we introduce something, we have some value adds that we like to introduce, such as an employee purchase program, or we'll introduce a free fleet analysis. And if they like it, then we offer to set up that next meeting to talk more about it. So that gets us a second appointment while we're there. If you really want to get a second appointment, uncover a need, for instance, that you might want to do some research on and tell them you'll get back with them, or give them a value that you want to talk more about. Employee purchase program, free fleet analysis. I might uncover something about vehicles that they've got questions on, and I might say, Mr. Smith, why don't I do this? I'll get information for you on that. I'll send it to you, but I'd like to sit down with you maybe in 2 weeks, and then we can go over that so I can kind of give you a detailed idea of what kind of savings you're going to get from that particular change. So again, try to get that second appointment while you're on the first one. Customer will determine when the second appointment occurs. Don't you try to push it. Just ask them, when is it convenient for us to meet again? And they'll let you know. I'm not a big believer in the alternative choice close. Would you like to meet this week or next? Would you like to meet in the morning, the afternoon? No, just let them tell you when they can meet, and they will. So let's keep it simple. Let's keep the pain out of selling. On subsequent visits, what are some of the things that we want to be able to do? One thing is we want to continue to grow the relationship. So we're always looking to find out more personal things about the customer on every call. Maybe I noticed in a picture that their daughter plays soccer. So every call, I'm going to go back to that and talk a little bit about it. Maybe I find out they're a particular sports fan, and I'm going to bring them something related to that. It's interesting. One of my prospects I called on once was a big New York Yankees fan. So I went ahead and ordered the annual Yankees book. It was about $20. And on the next call, I brought that book in and said, hey, I thought you'd enjoy this.
The time is 8
and it's
o'clock
amazing.
p.m.
Let's talk about strategy on subsequent visits. Number one, continue to enhance the relationship. That means continue to look for personal things that you can grow the relationship with. Continue to add value. I had a client once who was a New York Yankees fan, so I ordered the Yankees annual program, delivered to me, and the next sales call, I actually brought that in on the sales call. It did wonders to enhance that relationship. So always look to do something that can wow your customers. Continue to uncover needs and continue to offer solutions on every call, sometimes not related to vehicles. I had a client once, actually a prospect, who wasn't doing business with me, but they did mention that they needed to move, but he just didn't have time to check things out. So myself and my sales assistant went ahead and scouted out buildings in the part of town that he wanted to move to. And we actually got rental rates, we got discounts that might be available. We scouted out the area on his behalf and brought that information back to him. He was blown away. I uncovered a need, even though it didn't relate to what I sold at the time, and I offered a solution. I ended up winning all their business. So again, you never know. Always be uncovering needs. Never stop following up. Put them on a list. Send them articles. I like to subscribe to the New York Times for free because they send me articles that relate to business, and I forward those to my clients. I thought you'd like to see this. I have even bought subscriptions to magazines on areas of interest. I had a client once that was a Civil War nut. I mean, his whole office was dedicated and decorated with Civil War things. So I asked him, does he take any magazines for it? He said no. So I went to the nearest bookstore, found 4 magazines on Civil War, chose one of them, and for $14.95, I made a sales call by not being there every month when he got the subscription to that Civil War magazine. When I walked back in the door, I waited about 4 weeks, and I said, by the way, have you gotten your magazine yet? And he looked at me with shock. You ordered that? Well, you mentioned you liked it. I saw it in the bookstore. I just thought it's something you'd like. Wow. That's another wow factor. Never stop following up. Never stop doing things for your clients. We're going to move to Module 5 in your next section. We're going to talk about closing strategies again a little bit to gain customer commitment. And we're also going to talk about next steps. So it's going to be a very important module. So anyway, we look forward to working with you in that next module. Thanks again for joining us for Module 4 of Painless Selling, the actual sales call. I hope you picked up some great ideas. Be sure and download the forms that go with this module. Thank you. And again, guys, go out and